Weighted blankets, do they work? Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ask Dr. Pickel show, where we help people find answers who have chronic health conditions, chronic health problems. And today we are going to talk about weighted blankets. I've had many patients ask me about these or even tell me about their weighted blanket. And then a lot of times people even ask me, well, how does this work? What's behind this whole weighted blanket thing? Because you're seeing more and more of them, I would say. So let's go into some details with this, because I think it is a very interesting thing here. So weighted blankets seem to have some abilities there, and that they can promote a sense of calm. They can possibly improve sleep quality, and that would be not only help you from tossing and turning, but also help you fall asleep better, stay asleep better. They've been shown to reduce anxiety. Also, I've seen a tendency where there are benefits for kids and adults, especially if they have ADHD, autism spectrum disorders. And I would say when you're getting your weighted blanket, look for something that's about 10 to 15% of your body weight. Again, there's a gray area there too, because you want to find something that's comfortable, but that tends to be about just right in that area there. And then also, I'm going to recommend, if you do find one that's made of cotton, more of a natural cotton. I'm not a big fan of the synthetic blankets or any synthetic sleep stuff. And then also, it may take you some time to adapt. Some people, they can throw on these weighted blankets, fall asleep, they're good. Some people, especially if you have an anxiety issue, maybe a sleep issue, something new in your environment like this may make your mind kind of stay on longer than it should because it's new. But again, about 7 to 10 days to adapt potentially there. All right. And so let's say what is happening? What is the mechanism here? What happens when you use these weighted blankets? How does all this work? So I would say a good example of this would be that maybe you had a really stressful day. Maybe your boss yelled at you. Maybe you were driving home from work. You got a speeding ticket. Just a lot of stressful things happen in your life. What does that do? It increases your fight or flight system, which is part of your autonomic nervous system. It's also called your sympathetic nervous system. So this fight or flight system, if I'm running from a bear, I need a fight or flight system on. But if it's occurring on a regular, almost daily basis, not a good thing. But let's say you had that stressful day, it activated your fight or flight system. Then you got home from wherever you were at work or whatever, after getting your speeding ticket, and you got home and someone gave you a big smile, went over to you and gave you a big hug. Hugged you and squeezed you, and things started to calm down. So what happened there? This actually affected your brain chemistry, this hug, this pressure. They call it deep pressure therapy. So now you can't call it a hug anymore. You got to say deep pressure therapy. No, you can call it a hug. But this is what is being imitated with this blanket. So what can this blanket do? What is happening that causes this deep pressure therapy and affects your autonomic nervous system, which actually, we've just affected your fight or flight system with it before you got your hug, which is your sympathetic nervous system. Now, when you got that hug, that activated what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest system. That's the system that, calms things down. But what actually happens underneath that is the interesting part of this. So one thing that happens is when you put on this blanket or you got that hug, which the blanket can last longer. All right. This increases a brain chemistry hormone, or not really hormone, a neurotransmitter in the brain called serotonin. Serotonin is pretty good stuff. It can make you feel good. It can make you sleep good. It can decrease your pain. It can decrease depression. Another one it increases is dopamine. So when you increase dopamine to the brain, also this can make you feel happier, decrease that stress response. Also, well, think of dopamine. It's like if you eat your favorite food and you're like, oh, that's just you release dopamine. All right. Another thing that it can do, which is good, is decreases cortisol levels. So what happens when you're in that fight or flight mode, when you're running from that bear, um, or you hit that traffic and you got home, that fight or flight system is going, cortisol just starts to get released by your adrenal glands. Now, cortisol does some good things. We need it to increase our circulation, our heart rate. We need that anxious feeling if we're running from a bear. We need to shut down our digestive tract. We need not to sleep when we're running from a bear or having a stress response sometimes. But, we need that to calm down too when it comes time to go to sleep, or if we have increased anxiety. So decreasing cortisol, pretty good stuff there. All right. Another thing that it does is it increases GABA. Now, GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid, which is another neurotransmitter that our body can manufacture, which when that goes to the brain, that decreases anxiety. That also helps us to sleep. Now, I would say the two big ones for sleep here are serotonin and GABA. But and both of those, serotonin and GABA, also are probably the most tied to decreasing anxiety too. So those are probably top of the list there as far as what this blanket is really giving you. Now, there also has been some information, even some studies done with this type of response, that it decreases. Let's write that correctly. It decreases seizures. So if you're a seizure sufferer, a weighted blanket may be a good thing for you. Now, I wrote here at the bottom, there are some studies with this too. In about 2015, they did a study where they took a group of people, gave them weighted blankets, and 63% of them said, hey, that lowered my anxiety. 78% of those people said, hey, don't take that thing away from me. I want to keep it. They like it. It's helping them. Now, there actually was another study too done by a Swedish researcher, and he had people sleep with these for about 2 weeks. And he found after that their insomnia went away. So very interesting on how. And again, what also can happen with this? Another interesting thing is, let's say it's bedtime, you're laying in bed, and then you cover up with this weighted blanket. All right. And so what happens when you do that? Another thing that's going to occur is when you release some of these neurotransmitters, that affects that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest system, which then sends a signal down your vagus nerve. Now, this is a nerve that exits off your brain stem, and this nerve is part of that parasympathetic nervous system, which does a lot of great things for your digestive tract. But also, what does it do? It lowers your heart rate. So when you put on this blanket, your heart rate goes down. Actually, what that's going to do too is lower your blood pressure. So if you are in an anxiety mode, in a fight or flight response, you can see how this is going to help and make some differences there. So some great stuff here with the weighted blankets. I think they can definitely be beneficial if you can get comfortable with them, which can, again, take some time. I'd say the downside, not really a downside, maybe a problem that some people may have, is these weighted blankets do produce some heat. So, if you don't sleep very well warm, then this could be an issue. But, maybe it's like a really cold winter day, freezing cold outside, and maybe it's just right. So that's a possibility there too. And like I said, I do recommend more of the natural cotton rather than the synthetic types. All right. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed today with a weighted blanket topic. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and God bless, and I'll see you next time.